Hey guys, this is Lou, and I'm joined by the lovely Amie Jo.
What up? I haven't done that in a while. Also, this is weird that we're not live. Like, I don't know.
This is pre-recorded.
This is pre-recorded? Like, I'm not on the spot? Like, what? I don't know how to handle that.
So, it came off a little stiff at first, but what we're talking about for this topic, for this episode, is going to be opening up a comic book shop in 2022.
Yeah, the pros, the cons, kind of, what we've learned. And, if you're thinking about it, if you know someone who's thinking about it, if they want to listen to this, listen to what we've learned, because we like to learn things the hard way a couple of times. So if this can help anyone, and I think this will relate to, quite honestly, any business, not just a comic book shop, but just any entrepreneur that's getting ready to open up something, this is very valid.
Yeah, so the first question is, should you or should you not open up a comic book shop? Why or why not?
And I think you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. Like, do you have a passion for it? If you don't, if you're just like, I'm going to make corn dogs, but I don't like corn dogs, that's not going to work. So you have to have a passion for it. You have to have an understanding about it, because I know that's my biggest struggle, is not knowing the comic book, all the characters and all their backstories, but you do. You're like a savant. Yeah,
but still, your passion is in the next portion of that, which is you have to have a love for people, right?
Oh,
and you have to have that servant's attitude, that servant's heart,
Yeah.
Because this particular niche, you cannot be successful if you're an introvert.
No, you have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to discuss so many different things, and you have to be willing to discuss things that you don't know. And you have to be willing to, get into topics that, like, for instance, the gaming. That has been a new topic for us, and that's something that, I'm trying to learn. And, you got to be willing to talk about it with people. Got to be willing to have an open mind about it. If you're an introvert and someone walks in the door and your first reaction is to get on your phone and I just didn't want to say anything to anyone, that's not going to work. You've got to, that door opens, you've got to be having either yourself or your employee going, hey, welcome in, thanks for being here. Can I help you find anything? Let's talk about storylines. What do you like? What characters do you like? Are you here shopping for yourself? Are you shopping for someone else? If you don't have a person that's able to do that, your shop will fail. 100%.
Yeah, and you have
to be able to.
Either you have to be able to do that, or you have to find someone to do that, because the key thing is the comic book people, the hardcore collectors, are going to come to your shop
no matter
what. But the new customers, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, who have never picked up a comic book a day in their life, but they're trying to find something for their kids, that is critical.
It is. And especially when you have, a mom that's coming in to buy a birthday present. Not only is she going to be there, she's going to have a kid relatively the same age, then she's going to be buying a gift for someone else. That's 2 for 1. That's a BOGO. That's a buy one, get one. And that is something that I think you can, you have to capitalize on. Not only are you here buying a gift, but hey, do you have a kid? Maybe they would like a story. You have to just be very willing to be open and talking to people. And if you can't, you have to hire someone immediately that can. And the perfect example of that was when we were in Connecticut. Those 2 shops we went to. The first one we walked into, they welcomed us. They talked to us. The second one we walked into, the downstairs one, dude didn't even acknowledge that we walked in. And we had someone with us who was ready to spend a grip of money.
Yeah.
And he almost looked a little, what's the word I'm looking for? A little perturbed when we were asking to see books that were behind the counter. Like, ugh.
All right, let me do these ones. Because it interfered with, I think he was doing like some gaming or something.
Yeah, he was on his phone when we walked in. He did not acknowledge us. It was a group of 5 of us. and he didn't acknowledge us. That made a difference to me. I didn't really care to shop there at that point. I was like, there was nothing to, that made a difference between the two shops. That first shop, we spent money at. That second shop, we didn't buy anything at.
No, we did.
Did we buy something there?
Yeah, I bought.
Oh, that's where you bought the Amazing Fantasy remake one.
But here's the thing: the reason I purchased there was because I'm a comic book person.
Yeah.
But you weren't enticed. As a matter of fact, you were trying to rush out of there. You didn't want anything.
I was over it.
Yeah, you were over that place. So.
But that just shows the difference between the two. That first shop we were at, even though it was smaller, more cramped, all of the things, I would have spent more time there. We did spend more time there.
Yeah, we did.
And I was hunting for comics, and I am not a collector. And I was going through their back issue bins. The guy was engaging with us. He was talking with us, found out we were from Alaska. Not only that, he invited us to the swap that we were a vendor at. He was like, hey, if you're here this weekend, he was exactly what you need for someone to be running your store.
Right. Well, I think he was one of the owners or something.
But still, it was the personality. I guess that's what I get back to, is that personality, right, and the difference that it made with me. And I think I'm a good gauge of your average non-comic book collector consumer. Right. So, like, if I was going in with my kids and someone acknowledged me walking in with my kids, compared to someone who didn't say, hey, can I help you guys find anything? Da da da. That made the difference between a sale for me.
Now, we're trying to address why or why not to open up a shop. If you're opening up the shop strictly to get rid of your old collection, you're better off doing a Comic-Con or a local comic swap.
Yep.
You should not open up a shop. Shops historically are part of the community. It is not like any other shop or any other niche, with exception of maybe the local barber shop, and that's what I would compare it to. The local barber shop, where you go and you hang out, catch up with the person doing your hair and the fellow guests in the shop that you've started to establish a relationship with because you guys see each other there regularly.
Right.
And you have the neighborhood talk. You're not just talking about, like, for instance, in Woodhaven, New York, where I grew up, in Woodhaven, Queens, we had Steve the Barber's and Mikey the Barber's shop. And both of these shops had a boxing nexus. I know that Steve actually trained boxers at the time.
Oh.
And so when we went to that barber shop, there was black and white photos of famous boxers that he had trained or they had met during their careers, and the theme was combat sports when we were in that barber shop.
Right.
Right next door was the baseball card / comic book shop. So it just, that mentality and that camaraderie, that culture, literally extended next door. So when we would go next door, now everyone was talking about, sports cards and stuff, and famous athletes and athletes that we knew. Being in New York, we had access to Shea Stadium and, the New York Mets, the New York Yankees, Giants, Jets. We had major teams there. The Rangers, the Islanders. So we had access to actual, not like wannabe Anchorage. We were like a real city.
It's like we had 0.0. I had no dog in the fight with Alaskans because we had none. It was like the closest we had was Seattle, the Seawolves, and then the Aces, but they were like C team.
That was my joke on Anchorage.
Okay, we get it. You're more cultured. Okay.
Yeah. But my point being is that you had
that camaraderie,
that type of culture.
Yeah.
The comic book shop is community. If you're not one of those people that is going to want people to come into the shop and ask questions and to talk about,
sit down and shoot the shit.
Yeah, the
whether it be comic related or not.
Yeah, if you're not about that type of community feel, Do not open up a shop.
Don't.
Your shop's going to fail.
Don't.
It'll fail. You'll go out of business soon enough. Now, what qualifies us to even talk about this? We've had our shop since 2019. We opened it up prior to COVID.
Yep.
And
by the grace of God, have been able to remain open.
Not only did we remain open, but we were also able to expand to a second location on Joint Base Elmendorf Richardson. So I think we can speak with some authority on how to get into the niche, and how to remain in the niche. Is it a difficult niche to be in? Absolutely, and that's our next topic, which is the money.
Yeah.
You've made the decision that you're going to open up a comic book shop. You feel that you can do the community thing. You think that you feel that you can do the social. You can overcome your introvert attitude and everything else. Now you want to open up your shop. You're gonna need money.
But I want to touch back on one quick point, because I think it is very important to talk about as well, especially in this niche. You cannot be a collector first as a shop owner. And you said about starting it with your own collection and everything, because when books are going and you have to sell them and you have to, make these decisions on, oh man, but I really love that book and it's nostalgic for me for this. You have to be a seller, a shop owner first, and a collector second, because I don't think that you can be successful, in my opinion, because you're more apt to either A, not sell something, or B, maybe have a more difficult transaction with people because you have this nostalgic over, certain books and things like that. And I think it's very important to remember to be a shop owner first, collector second.
Well, I think it's because now it's easy for you to say that because you haven't been a collector, but I'm glad that you said it because it is an extremely valid point. And I don't just say that because
I'm your wife and you love me and you're not going to tell me that I'm wrong.
I say that because you are 100% correct. It is no different than the old adage of don't get high on your own supply.
Yeah.
You're going to take it personal otherwise when someone comes in and lowballs, and you take it so personal because that book is worth so much more to you.
Yes.
But they don't understand that relationship, nor do they care about your relationship with that particular book.
They don't care that was the last book you and your dad read together and whatever, they don't care. And that's where I think that it's really important. And that's something that Jamie told us was you cannot have those attachments because you have to be a seller first. And it has come in a couple of times where you're like, man, I love that book. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. We're going to sell it.
I have personally sold several books that I was attached to personally, but I understood that the business comes first.
Yes.
At the end of the day, and this seems contradictory to what we just spoke to you about it being community, but at the end of the day, you are a business.
Yeah, there's
you have to treat it as a business.
There's a marriage there between being community and being business, because yes, be community oriented, yes, be customer oriented, but at the end of the day, you have a business to run. You have the light bill to pay, the rent, all of those things. So as you were saying, let's get into the next bullet point of this, which is the money, and that's gonna tie into all of this, because bills don't understand that you had a low sale month. They don't care. Your rent doesn't care, except on base, that you had a low sale, low month of sales, that 15 people didn't come pick up their pool boxes, that, all of these things. Those things don't matter. So you have to be prepared to combat that. And you have to be, I think, not ruthless is not the right word, but you have to be, I think, a little bit more direct with certain people who are like, yeah, man, just put that book aside for me. I'll come get it eventually. Nah, you've got to come get this book within 30 days.
Well, here's the thing. So we're going to talk about the money real quick because we're jumping ahead of our topics. So I'm gonna rein us in.
My bad.
I'm gonna rein us in because that the money will absolutely crush your shop. So first off, you have to have enough money to start the business, to make that initial purchase of inventory, to continue to purchase collections, to replenish your inventory, and to compensate for when customers either abandon their purchases, their orders, whether it be because of poor planning on their part, or as we are trying to be good humans and good community members, it could just be a life change that has occurred and unplanned. Those happen.
Totally understandable for those. But you have to be aware that those are going to happen.
Those are going to happen. People lose their jobs. People take pay cuts.
Their car
breaks down.
Tire blew.
With us
their
recently.
Their dog loses her back legs, the ability to use her back legs randomly.
Yeah, which was what happened with ours, and now you're $5,000-$6,000 into medical bills.
Yeah.
So we understand that those things happen, and you must be compassionate, but you have to be prepared.
Yes.
Financially to be compassionate, because otherwise you're going to be bitter. Mm-hmm. And that bitterness and that anger is going to pass on to your good customers, and you're going to end up losing good customers because of it. So you have to be prepared to weather the storm. I would not do what we did, which was I cashed in my entire retirement. Amie cashed in a portion of her retirement to keep this place going. Now, in our case, it was because we started the business. All of a sudden, COVID hits. And because we're so new, we didn't qualify for any assistance from the federal government, because the federal government actually
0.01.
Yeah, because the government, the way the government looked at it was, we are only going to give money for people that lost revenue.
Yes.
Since we were a brand new business that is in an expansion phase, we're not taking losses. We can't demonstrate losses because we
didn't have a prior year to show it off of.
We don't have a prior year to show any losses.
And no matter how many times we tried to explain that to all of the people who, all of this was for small business help, blah, 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 it really wasn't. And anyway, I'm bitter about that subject, if we're being really honest about things. I'm very frustrated with that, especially because now all those articles are coming out about people who defrauded the system and got all millions of dollars, and I couldn't even get $20. Yeah. So I digress, but we'll back on topic. But no, you do.
There's other creative financing that we've learned about. So one of the things that we've taken advantage of to help us stay afloat has been the our point of sale system through Square. Mm-hmm. Square will actually, once you start showing revenue, will start offering you assistance. They'll offer you loans, essentially. Advancements that they charge you, let's say 10-15% of your sales, and that's what they'll draw from your sales each day to pay back that loan. But that's money, that's an advance that you can get immediately. And I'm shaking the camera. That's why Amie told me to get my hands off the damn table.
Why I keep doing that, but it's okay.
Yeah, I apologize, guys. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll get a more stable.
I was trying to be subtle about it too, and I was just like, hold my hand. It's almost our wedding anniversary. Hold my hand. Stop shaking the table.
Like, stop shaking the camera. So now that you guys all have motion sickness,
yes,
I'll continue with number one. I apologize for that, but I can tell you that you're going to need finance, because those advancements help you for inventory, and in our case was to manage our personnel, our staff, and we'll get into that topic here in a sec. But the big thing is that there's no way that you're going to be able to run this business and expand it by yourself. Mm-hmm. At one point or another, you're going to have to entertain employment of new staff. As an example, money-wise, so that you understand, I've had some people in the community reach out to me and ask how I was able to get on base. I explained to them how you apply through AFIS, which is the Armed Forces Exchange Services. They're located out of Dallas. The rent is based off of a percentage of your sales. They offer you space at their exchange and mall complexes. Okay, that's how that works. One thing that you have to keep in mind, though, if you have employees on the base, you must pay them the federal minimum wage standard, which is rising to $15 an hour. So you need to keep that in mind. If you're opening up a shop on base and you have employees, you're going to have to pay your employees the federal minimum wage.
Yep.
Not your local minimum wage, not your homie hookup minimum wage. You have to pay them the federal minimum wage, which is rising to $15 an hour. So you need to keep that in mind when you make your hires and when you're making your budget and when you're applying for grants, loans. You need to be at a minimum paying your people a wage, a respectable wage, where number one, they're not stealing from you, but number two, they're loyal because they know that you're taking care of them financially and that you know what their worth is.
Right.
It is no different than any other business, period.
Yeah. And, you know, going back and you have to add up all of that. You have to go in, and it's hard to know initially what each month is going to be, you know, what you're going to need to set aside. But once you do, I think your goal should be, as you're opening, is to try to ballpark like 3 months of rent, 3 months of utilities, all of those things, and then try to make sure that you have that, so that way you have the ability to have a month where, you know, there's a gigantic windstorm and we have to close down because there's a, you know, natural disaster and there's no relief for that. You're just closed down because it's A, no one's going to be outside, B, or it's not safe for your employees. So I think it's really smart to have a reserve set aside, one that you can't really touch, like put it in a different account, put it in an account you can't see, that you don't have quick access to. Put it in something that you have, it's just out of sight, out of mind. So that way, when that month happens, you can go, I got this.
Well, like Square, I like, because Square, and I'll have the link for Square in the description here. We truly believe that you should have a point of sale system. For the guys that are out there with the spreadsheets, the Excel spreadsheet, and the regular register,
God love you,
but that's not the way to do it.
There's so much easier ways.
And we know a lot of guys do cash so that they don't have to pay taxes. I promise you that's going to catch up to you later. It'll catch up to you. Don't do it.
And it's too hard to keep it, you know, the cash sales from the credit card sales and all that other stuff. Just
do the right.
Just do it.
Get a point of sale system. Square allows me to upload all of my CSV files from all of my distributors. I can upload photos for my staff so that they know the different variants. And then the point of sale system, in particular Square, also has it where I have a percentage set aside for savings, where it draws a certain portion of all my sales and throws it in savings and gives I think right now it's 0.05% or whatever, but that's better than 0%.
Yeah, exactly.
It's earning some type of interest. And so you're earning interest in a savings account that you're not even thinking about. It's drawn from your sales each day, and now you're ready for a rainy day. God forbid it happen. God forbid something like that happens. Of course, with us, the other thing we do is Patreon and everything, because that helps rainy days, and it also helps out when we have customers that are in a dark place or have a bad thing happen to them. We can actually come out and help them.
That's specifically what we use our Patreon for. But you know, and to bring it back to the money part of it all, it is one of those things that you need to sit down multiple times and go over what you think your monthly cost is going to be, and really think, is that something that not only do you have to make that as a minimum, you need to make more than that.
Well, let me explain, because your inventory, and I'm going to skip a topic here. It's segue into inventory. your inventory, and this is all going to make sense as we have it lined out. You're going to have different discount percentages based off of the product and based off of quantities. Comic books typically start you off at between 38 to 50% depending on what you're ordering. I can assure you, if you're the only comic book shop within serving like in our case, we serve a population of 75,000 people. Actually, it's more than that now. We're probably serving a population of about 200,000 people between Anchorage and the Valley, because the Valley is 80,000 people, and Anchorage is almost 300,000. Yeah. So, and we split that. There's only one other shop, so we're literally splitting that, and we have a shop now in the Anchorage area, so we're splitting that with them. With that being said, you will find, as long as you're serving a decent population, you're going to hit the 50% threshold pretty quickly. I can assure you that you're going to be spending a minimum of about $1,000 a week in purchasing of inventory just for comic books. You may start off pull list at maybe $500 inventory. That's gonna double almost immediately. You find that like Diamond, Lunar, Penguin all have the same minimums, which is you have to make a minimum purchase of I think it's like $400-$500 a month. If you're doing it right, you'll be doing that in a week, no problem. In 1 week, you'll be making that purchase, and they want you to do that in a month to maintain your eligibility to order from them at wholesale price. For gaming, completely different. Gaming, you're looking at a threshold of about 38%. You're going to be pissing off your customers initially, and this is why you have to educate your customers. Pokemon cards, Magic cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Your threshold is 38%. That is very difficult to make a profit on. Not to mention the fact that there is no longer an MSRP, for instance, on Magic cards, and the MSRP is slowly disappearing on Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh. What that means is, it's not just that we have to raise our price. We have to raise our price because our suppliers are now raising the price at the warehouse level. So we have a local supplier, for instance, that provides us Pokemon cards. The Pokemon cards, if you purchase them within the first 3 weeks of release, you get them at whatever the typical price is. So a booster box is probably going to run you wholesale about anywhere from $75 to $86, sometimes closer to $90. Anything after 3 weeks, you're going to be paying anywhere from $100 to $120 a box,
which is essentially market value.
Right. So I can't make any money. No supplier can make any money selling you a booster box at the recommended market price, because that's what we end up paying for it, damn near.
Right.
So we have to raise the price.
And I'm not Target.
And that's we're not Target, where we can survive off of 25 cents on each book.
Right.
On each item. That's not going to work.
Because they got a million items. Right. So it makes it
because
different.
They do the mass sales,
and I think
quantity sales.
Yeah, that's something to remind people of. But anyway,
quantity sales is something that, until you establish yourself online, you establish yourself in your community, you establish yourself at Comic Cons and everything else, you're not going to be hitting the massive numbers like Midtown and DCBS to be able to command, for instance, what they call warehouse pricing, which I think is like 57%. So just remember that, guys, that the money that you need for new inventory is significant, and you have to have enough money to I would say about 90 days worth
I think
items.
3 months. Yeah. And not only that,
you have to. It's no different. If you go to a grocery store and they have no milk and no eggs, you're not going back to that grocery store. You got to have stuff on the racks.
And on top of that inventory, you need to be prepared to buy a couple of collections, because you're going to want not just new books. You're going to want older books, because those are,
that's where your profit margin is.
That's your profit margin
old books.
is older books and buying that collection. So, that's something else to account for when you're trying to add up the numbers. Everyone's like, well, I'll just open it up and I'll just go order some books and we'll just
you have to purchase collections. You have no choice. You have to purchase collections. You have to establish local resources for purchasing collections.
And when it comes to purchasing a collection, you have to go in with the person and telling them, we cannot give you eBay prices.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that they're going to come in with the death of Superman and they're going to get you to buy it for, $400. Mm-hmm. And it's like, sorry about that. No, here's a quarter actually. But anyway, you have to know, and especially when you're looking at those books, you have to be like, look, make a fair deal, but it's not going to be eBay prices.
I have learned over the last several years that when you purchase a collection, people tend to walk away happy. Both parties walk away happy because they receive a satisfactory amount for the whole collection, a lump sum.
Without having to do the work.
I do not purchase individual books at my shop. If you come in with Hulk 181, I'm not buying it from you.
Nope.
I will not buy it from you. I'll buy a whole collection that includes Hulk 181 in it, but I will not buy just Hulk 181 from you. It's not happening. You're wasting your time and my time if you show up to a shop, because there's no, the profit margin dwindles when you're only buying one book.
Yeah, you can
so
just go sell that on eBay.
You buy collections. For shops, comic book shops that don't do back issues, I tend to cringe a little, and the reason I say that is because the largest profit margin, hands down, is in back issues.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Plain and simple.
100% in that.
You could be talking upwards of 200% markup on back issue bins.
And especially with that collection, and if you have a really good staff or yourself that you're up on it, all of a sudden you realize this book, which was now a $5 key, has now gone up to a $50 key. Yeah. And you're able to keep watch of all of those things. That changes because you bought that whole entire collection with the base price of those books being a set price point, and now you've been able to locate okay, these books are going to be worth more, it's going to give me a bigger profit margin. And that is why buying a single book compared to a collection, I mean, I would never entertain someone that comes in with like a stack of like 20 books. That's still, again, that's not going to do me much good. Like I'm talking a collection, like a short box, a long box, those types of collections.
Now remember, manage your business. This is a business. Do not price at the register.
No.
If you have a book in your dollar bin and it is now a $30 book and you have it marked as $1, that is your fault. That is not the customer's fault. That was because you didn't catch it. Your staff is not aggressively going through your collections and through your inventory and updating prices. That's on you. That is not on the customer.
The customer loves it when they're like, yo, man, you sure this book's only $1? And you're like, yeah, you found it. Good. That incentivizes that person to come back and buy more, because they are going to go through your back issues again, looking for that diamond in the rough type of situation.
If you don't have anything worth the hunt in your back issue bins, people will not come back to your back issue bins.
No.
That's that. So you have to make it worthwhile. And you know damn well that some of those books you only paid 5-10 cents for, maybe 25 cents for. You can take the hit, and they keep coming back because they realize what a fantastic deal. But they also respect your key wall, because now when they see your key wall, they're like, well, these guys they worked to get that thing up on the key wall. They actually researched and looked and went through the back issue bins. And we know that they do honor dollar bins and they're
$2 and $3 books and stuff like that.
So they're willing to give you that respect of your key wall when you've shown them the respect by showing some honor in your pricing in your dollar bins.
Right. Don't be that one that looks up every book when you're at the register. Like don't do that. That just, I know if it was me, I'd be like, take all of them. I'm not buying any of them. Bye.
And we've seen that before. We've seen that at other shops. So we've talked about the money.
We need to talk about location.
Well, first thing I need to talk about for the guys that are listening, I have my lovely wife sitting next to me.
Yeah, we forgot about that topic too.
And you have to have your spouse or partner on board. My wife has never read a comic book a day in her life, with the exception of maybe Archie by accident and maybe some of the Sunday
No, it's just in the Cars checkout line when I was growing up. But, again, that was also, geographical as well. I grew up in a town of 500 people. We didn't have comics. I mean, there was a comic book shop in the Valley at some point in time when I was growing up, but I never went. I didn't have money for that. And when you told me you wanted to open up this shop, I still don't know very much about comics, but here I am talking about opening a shop with some rather good authority and information. Now, if you're asking me for the backstory into the multiverse of some character, that's where I'm going to default to you. But this is a passion of yours, and I support you. Do I go to everything? No. Do I do all the things? No. Do I do a lot of them? Yes. Why? Because it's your passion and I want to support you and I want this to be successful. And I know for a lot of people, they may say, well, my significant other doesn't care about comics at all. I don't particularly have an attachment to many comic books either, but I have an attachment to my husband, and therefore I'm going to be here to be your biggest fan. I'm going to find you a Deadpool poster that's signed by all the actors from the movie. I'm going to do all these random things, because if you don't, and if you have no idea what's going on, and if you don't even attempt, you don't even have to go and be there every day. But if you don't try to understand even a little bit of the industry or what they're going through, so that they can either vent or they can come to you for, I need to talk to you about this. Let's, soundboard this out. Let's figure it out. They're going to fail because they don't have that support unit. I can't imagine anyone getting into this myself. I guess I shouldn't say you're going to fail. You're more than likely, I would imagine, on a road to failure, because you don't have that support system. You don't have that, I can come home and I don't have to come home and be like, oh man, she's going to be so mad. I only sold, this much today, and It doesn't, you don't know. Just be there, support them, be their biggest cheerleader. Go buy the Spartan cheerleader outfit from SNL. I don't care what you got to do, but be there. You don't have to know everything. Just be there.
I've appreciated that you've started cosplaying and all sorts of stuff. Like, you've jumped in on
3 years ago, if anyone would have asked me that I would dress up in different character outfits, because I didn't even know cosplaying was a thing, I would have laughed and I would have asked what drugs you were on and if you had any extra to share. Because it was, obviously a very good drug. And now I look at it and it is something that has become fun for me, which I never thought I would say. And I know that it is good for our shop, and I know it's something that you enjoy, and I know it supports, you. Yeah, I mean, you definitely get the, happy part of that. But it's one of those things. Like, if you're, like I said, you don't have to be at all the things. I don't go to all the things. I tell him, I've had enough. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to go do this. And he's like, okay, cool. Because you have to have that balance. And I think it's really, really important. Just because it's your passion and your profession doesn't mean it's my passion and my profession. But because I love you and I support you, I'm going to know enough about it to support you. The end.
It shows. So it helps me to be able to step forward and bring my very best to the business, and to acquire the best staff, and to continue to put the energy into marketing and everything else to keep this business going, which goes into another critical portion of this, which is location. Unfortunately, with the suppliers, many of them are going to insist that you are brick and mortar. In particular, a lot of the gaming stuff and the toys and everything else. But even if you're just doing comic books, location. With that being said, is it true that no matter where you build it, they will come? Yes, that is true.
Yes and
no. You can. That's how you can start. If you need to start, if you need to do how we did to start, we found a second floor office space that was owned by or had been rented by Aflac. In
an old building that had grandfathered rights to not have handicap access.
Right.
This was huge in our upstart, because at first I was like, oh, it's just some stairs. No big deal. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
It was a good start.
It was. We could afford it.
We could afford it at $1 a square foot. We could absolutely afford it. And we had to make an investment for remodeling, to knock down some walls. I had no idea that we were going to expand that quickly, but once again, if you're in an area that has been starving for this hobby, like we were, you will find that you will need to expand rather quickly. We started off with one suite. We ended up having to rent the second suite, knock down the wall, and within 6 months, knock down the wall, expanded to the second suite. And
6 months after that.
6 months after that.
Not even 6 months after that.
Yeah, about
6 months.
About 6 months after that, we ended up with
October, March. Or no, I guess it was a year later.
And a year later, we were downstairs in a full-blown storefront
on the ground floor that has handicap access, all of that stuff. Right. Which
location,
because we had one particular customer who is wheelchair bound, who could never come into our shop. He had to FaceTime to see what was in the shop, to see what he wanted when we were upstairs. Now that we're downstairs, he's an honorary store manager. Yeah. You know who you are. And we have several other customers who, yes, they could technically do those stairs, but it's dangerous. It's Alaska. It's the wintertime. I don't care who you are. It's cold. I don't want to go up them stairs. I hate those stairs. I'm so happy we don't have to do that
imagine
anymore.
Bringing inventory up there every week. Sometimes twice a week.
Depending on what it was. If it was a BCW order, it was so much stuff. So anyway,
the location is very important.
You have
to be able to, number one, you have to be able to afford it.
Yes.
Now, can you grab an industrial area, i.e., find like an area that was typically for a mechanic shop, or like Bosco's, they purchased a car wash. And convert it to a comic book shop? 100%. And is it more affordable? 100%. It is more affordable. Will people come and find you? Yes, 100%. So you know your area better than we do. Okay? We found an industrial area. It just wasn't going to work because of the traffic patterns.
The traffic patterns were really bad. When we were looking, there was a couple of places that were great, but these people wanted $5 a square foot.
Some of them wanted $7 a square foot,
and
which was insane.
For us to pay for all the remodel on a place that wasn't even done. Don't even get me started on that story, because no.
You find an owner.
But you find someone that you can work with.
You're helping them and they're helping you. So like the owner of our place split the cost 50-50 for the remodel.
Yeah.
You're not finding that anywhere. I'm sorry. Unless you hunt for it, you know your community and you know your builders.
And they knew that this was just making their building better. Right. But again, you have to be visible. You cannot be in that dark corner that doesn't show up on Google Maps. You have to be visible. You have to put signage out. You've got to be able to to make sure that you upload your information so that people can find you on Google or whatever your preferred search method is.
You got to learn Google SEO. You've got to
do all of that
stuff.
because you have to make sure your hours are right on there. You have to make sure you're visible. All of those things, because you would be surprised if we've had like something happen and we weren't able to make it in on time or something. People are like calling an email, hey, are you guys open today? Like I stopped by, and it's like, oh,
And they're checking on your well-being too, because it's community.
Yeah,
right?
It is. But anyway, so location is really, really, it is as important as it is. You have to, like, we didn't rush. We started to kind of get down like we'll just do this one. And I said, no, we need to wait. We need to find that right one. And then we found this one. And yes, it needed work, but it was affordable. It was in a good area. Our area where we're at.
Between 3 schools.
We're next to a library. We're next to several major restaurants and grocery. Post office. There's a grocery store right next to us. There are so many things that pull people into that area. And we're next to a major roadway. Yeah. But we're just off the major roadway enough to where people can access us easily. So again, you have to do your due diligence in finding that location that's going to work for you and also be one that you can afford. Don't get into that really nice, great storefront. Oh man, this is in this really popular part of town and it's going to be great. And yeah, it's $5 a month, but I'm going to have so many people coming in here. You don't know that. And don't put yourself in that position where your rent is so god awful. That's exactly what happened with our friend that had a framing shop. Put themselves in a very popular spot. Thought, oh, this was going to bring in all sorts of people. It's a very particular niche. Did not bring in as many people as they thought it would.
And the landlord was a scumlord.
And the total scumlord. But anyway.
So, it's critical that you know your location. You're going to know your location better than we are, period.
Yeah.
So, location. We can't say it enough. You know your area. You can work deals out. The other thing is you want to make it a win-win for the landlord. In our case, we made it a win-win because we took over a clinic where the doctor had murdered 5 people by overprescribing medications. Mm-hmm. So they already had a lot of negative press on there. So they were more than willing to get us down into that old clinic, remodel. And what we did to reciprocate their kindness, we went to our Chamber of Commerce, and you should be joining your Chamber of Commerce or at least be working with them. And our Chamber of Commerce arranged for a ribbon cutting for our new location.
Getting that exposure.
So we got that exposure. It gave positive media coverage to the landlords. It gave positive media coverage to us. It showed people that a positive could come out of a very dire negative.
Yeah.
And everybody won in that transaction. Everybody won. And that's the other thing too, is you got to know your community. We have local cosplay groups, like the Sub-Zero Heroes would come to our shop for special events. Yep. And they would come and just be dressed up for the kids.
Not only that, the community in general, when we moved from upstairs to downstairs, we had several customers offer, hey man, I can just come help.
And that's what happened.
And that's exactly the only reason we were able to do it, is because they were there to help. I think we are going to have to break this up into 2 parts.
Yeah, we are.
I think this is going to be a good spot to nip this one right here, and then we'll do the rest, because that is going to be, the rest of that's going to be a really big subject.
Yeah, so we're going to
And I don't want to overdo this with you guys. We'll do this into 2 parts.
Yeah, so we're going to, this is part 1.
Part 1. Part 1 of 50. No,
Part 2, we're going to be dealing with inventory, your distributors, which could damn near take a whole show. Whether you should do comics or games, and what are the consequences of doing both, and when is it a good thing, when is it a bad thing. Exposure. Yep. Getting your staff, because we need to do a big thing on staff and staff recognition, and the consequences of pull lists.
Yes. And I think one other topic that we might want to add on there, or just like a segue into the exposure, is your networking and how you have to be able to network.
Yes.
Because specifically for us, a really good example is we have friends on the East Coast now because of this niche that we met on YouTube, who are now some of our best friends. You know who you are.
That's right.
So, I think that all that is really important. So we'll end it on just thinking about like your guys' location and just how important that is. And I know that we kind of bounced around a lot, and I'm really sorry. There's just so much of this to talk about. Even with notes, we didn't stay completely on our bullet points.
Well, that was her fault.
Oh, please.
That was 100% her fault. But just to summarize, we discussed why or why not you should get into this business. And then the subsequent, in our next session, our next portion, you may come to the conclusion that you may not want to do this, or at least you'll be more prepared. We discussed that the amount of money, or the fact that you're going to need funds to make these purchases. I would say, and I didn't put an actual number.
It depends on where you are. Everything changes on your rent, everything. All of those things are dependent on where you are. So I
would say between 40,000 and 100,000, depending on where you are, as a minimum of money that you should have. And then having your spouse or partner on board with this whole adventure, because it's going to affect your relationships.
You're going to talk about it over dinner, and sometimes you're going to have to say, we're not talking about this over dinner.
Right. And then, of course, the location. So concerning inventory and suppliers, that'll be part 2. That'll be next time. So thank you guys. Thank you for watching and listening. Please make sure to share, subscribe, follow.
Do all the things with the interwebs.
And we look forward to seeing you on the next time.
Make good choices.
Lou and Amy, I can't tell you how happy I am that opening day is here. I have imagined for so long what it would be like to finally come into the shop. Aegis Comics of Alaska and you guys have made the last 2 years so fun and something to always look forward to. I hope business is better downstairs. You'll be seeing more of me. Just wanted to say thanks so much, Austin. Artist Dylan.
I knew he was going to do that. And then Austin designed this himself on the computer, his computer. Got it?
Yeah. Oh.
Austin.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh.
Oh my gosh. Yep, you designed the whole thing.
That is really cool.
You are the absolute